hit the okay on that, and then we'll get started again. Everybody up? Okay. So backtracking just a little bit here. Tonight's core value coach is on personal mission statement. And again, some of my thoughts, my launch pad into today's discussion is going to be from Raise Your Game with Alan Stein. And again, I got so many nuggets out of this read. It took me longer than normal. I usually can get a book done in a couple of days, 2-3 days. If it's good, I can cruise through it. And this one had so much meat in it that it took me over a month and a half to digest it. I had a couple of other projects going too. So I took a quote from Alan Stein, and it says, "Success comes when commitment meets belief." All right? Success comes when commitment meets belief. And I believe that, and it resonated with me. So I had to break it down. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what do you believe? If success comes when commitment meets belief, you have to believe something. So we're going to have to define what we believe. That's number one. And number two, are you committed to what you believe? So only two things, but they're big things. And it kind of goes back to what Jim was talking about when he was originally talking about values. And any of you who have read Jim's book, the answer is yes. He's real big on values. When he's coaching his clients, his business clients, he always starts with values. What are your values? But values, okay, we've got the values, but now we're going to go to a personal mission statement from that. And values are going to help you identify what you believe. So that's the foundational part of that. The other thing I want to mention to you is when we started Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, Jim and I launched another business as well this year. But any business that I've ever done, the first thing that we write is a vision statement, a mission statement, and a vision statement. And they're usually kind of overlapped. At least the ones I do, they're always overlapped. In fact, even on this one, I believe, I'm going to go back to it. It said mission and vision. That's my heading. So just to start a business, mission and vision is first. Nothing is real until you put it on paper. Okay. And that's the other thing I'm going to tell you. Even if you don't like to write, I'm telling you, write down your vision. You do have homework tonight. And that's by next week. I want all of you to email me back, text me back with your personal mission statement. Okay. So every business plan starts with that. So I want you to think of yourself as a business partner. You're your own business partner. You need to define what your mission statement is. Those of you who are married, happily married, or even in business with a spouse, get some feedback on this and ask them if it resonates. Ask your spouse, ask your business partner if this resonates with them. Does this sound like who you are? Does this mission statement represent who you are? So that's going to come first. Everything follows. Once you have your mission statement, everything else follows. Everything you do is going to be done with purpose toward that mission statement. Okay. You can see that this is the jet fuel. If you get this one right, it's just going to bracket everything in. All those loose pieces out there. Jim, I'm thinking of you specifically here, with a conversation that you and I had. Sometimes just, you've got all these different avenues that you could pursue, different things you could do, different things you might want to do. But if you get your vision statement down, I really believe it's going to launch you forward into where you really want to go, or maybe even where you need to go next. Can always change our minds too, right? Okay, so business mission. What is your business mission? Okay, it's about who you want to serve. There's always a niche out there. There's a niche that somebody has to fill. Maybe someone's already filling it, but you think you could do it better. Maybe there's more room within that niche that you could jump in and do something differently and do it better again. So find out where that niche is and then figure out how to monetize it. That's where your business plan comes in. Okay. But as far as your personal mission, before you get into that business mission, you've got to have your personal mission. And this is how I want you to kind of framework that. Instead of who you want to serve and how do you monetize it like you do with a business plan, with a personal mission, it's about What legacy do you want to leave? What's when they have that, you know, 1990 something dash 25 something, you know, the dash is going to define your life. Okay. So what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? That should be your mission statement. And besides you and your family, you know, again, my personal values, I'm big on family. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too, because I'm going to give you an idea how I came to my mission statement. But it's even more than that. Besides yourself and your family, who else? Think bigger. Okay. Don't just think yourself. Don't just think your family, maybe even your grandkids. How can you go beyond that? Those are limiting factors. How do you go beyond that? So I really challenge you with your mission statement to go beyond just the local. Go broad, go big. What's that old adage? Go big or go home. All right. We don't want you to go home. We want you to go big. Okay. So your personal mission statement should be a reminder that business is always about people, right? Your legacy has to be about people, not just you, not just your family. It has to be about people. All successful business is about serving people. So I'm giving you the broad pretext here. You know, this is the big umbrella. You know, when you start defining what's going on here, this is going to be huge. But like children, here's the rub. We're all like kids, right? Because we don't have to remind ourselves to take care of our own needs, right? We don't. We don't need to be reminded to brush our teeth. We don't need to be reminded to go eat when we're hungry. We don't need to be reminded to mow the lawn when the lawn needs mowed, and to get up and go to work when we need to go to work, you know, because we're adults. But this is where we need that reminder. We need reminded to be unselfish. We need reminded to share. We need reminded to give. You know, those are things that, you know, children can take care of themselves, but we have to teach them to share. You know, we have to remind them what's right and how to go about this. So I think your personal mission statement should also be a reminder to you about how you want to be. Okay. What reminders do you need to give yourself? I know I had several, but we'll get into that in a minute. So we're part of something bigger. It can't just be about us. So that's the big power of it. So I'm going to give you my personal mission statement, and then I'm going to tell you kind of how I came to that, because it didn't just get a download miraculously in my sleep one night. It actually started out with a couple of paragraphs, and then I started boiling it down and boiling it down. I wanted it to be accurate. I wanted it to be a portrayal of what I really believed, but I didn't want it to go on and on. I've been a part of several companies when they were writing their mission statements, and they were all good. When you get a collaboration, you know, 8 to 15 people sitting together and saying what's important for this organization, boy, I'm telling you what, you have to take a page and condense it down to a couple of sometimes a paragraph, sometimes a few sentences. But I wanted my personal mission statement to be really short and sweet. And this is what I ended up with after a lot of writing and rewriting. My personal mission statement is to empower ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. You might see that on any of you follow my Instagram account, Warpath Alliance. It's on there. To empower ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. So how did I get there? Well, I got there, and this is where we get to be vulnerable. I'm going to be vulnerable with you. And being vulnerable is a really good place to get out of the selfish mode. You know, this is a spot. I was ordinary. I grew up ordinary. My parents were ordinary. We were the lower middle class, hardworking. You know, I was one of 6 kids. I've shared that with you before. My parents taught me a really good work ethic. My dad worked until he broke his back in construction. And even when he was doing that, he drove school bus in the mornings. He sold Electrolux and Collier's encyclopedias, Electrolux vacuum cleaners and Collier encyclopedias in the evenings. My dad was a hustler. Okay, so he had a work ethic, but he had that entrepreneurial spirit. He also had 6 kids to feed and clothe, and some of them needed braces and some needed glasses. So we weren't poor, we didn't lack. But I will tell you this: what I did lack was any nurturing from my parents. And those of you who have read my book, The Warpath Alliance, you'll see that the first core value that I have in there is work ethic. And the first thing that comes against work ethic, and people always think it's going to be laziness or sloth, but it's not. It's being a workaholic. And that would be my mom and my dad. I didn't have a relationship with either of my parents. I knew they loved me, I guess. They never said it. Cursorily, they do now. Before my father passed, he would say it. But I didn't know that. I grew up with not a lot of self-esteem. I didn't get a lot of pats on the back and attaboys and that sort of thing. So I that made me feel even more ordinary. I never felt special, right? And so I relate to the ordinary people. And there are a lot more of us. I think there are more ordinary people than extraordinary people out there. But I think every ordinary person has extraordinary in them. And that's my goal. I want people to tap into their extraordinary. And I know they all have it because I found mine. And I found it the hard way. And I wish people didn't have to find it the hard way. So my mom, I'll give you a little background. She had, again, a great work ethic. We weren't nurtured. My mother was one of 12 siblings. Okay. I was on the phone with her just last night, and her mother immigrated to the United States when she was 12 years old from Prussia. For those of you who don't know where Prussia is modern day Ukraine. So that's actually where my maternal side of the family came from. And things had to be so bad. Think about how bad things would have to get that you would pack up your kids and move to a foreign land where you didn't even know the language or the customs or the culture and move. That's how bad things had to be. And so my mother grew up one of 12 kids and through the Depression. And so they didn't get nurtured. In fact, my mom was telling me yesterday, they got farmed out. Her siblings went to other people's that didn't have a lot of kids, and they went to work, and instead of the kids getting paid, their parents got paid. So really child labor. So my mom didn't know how to nurture. She was never nurtured. And my dad was one of 15 kids. A couple of them didn't survive, 3 of them, but he also didn't have any nurturing. So they didn't know any better. My wife and I, when we got together, and my wife has even a worse story. She had 5 stepmothers, 5 mothers, 4 stepmothers before all was said and done. She had a father who was very wealthy, had drug problems. He was physically, emotionally, sexually abusive. A couple of stepmothers actually tried to kill her. My wife had suffered greatly as a child, absolute suffering. So if I thought I had it bad, my wife put that in perspective. I had it good. But we decided when we got together that we wanted family to be the most important thing. Our kids weren't going to feel ordinary. They weren't going to feel like anything except that they belonged and that they could do anything they wanted. That's what we wanted for our children. And we actually had a motto, which was save the family. We wanted to save the family. That was our motto when we first got together and started having kids. We wanted to do something different. And our neighborhood, our house was always the place where all the kids hung out. We homeschooled our children. I taught public school for a while, but we still homeschooled our kids. We did that before it was the popular thing to do like today. So we were ahead of the curve. We did everything with our children. Every weekend we went a different direction, packed them all up and went somewhere else. So, we broke the mold. There's a paradigm out there, including family paradigms. And it's up to us to shift the paradigm. what does that paradigm shift look like to you? If you want to make a paradigm shift, you need to define what it is. And that's where your mission statement comes in. So again, my mission, to empower ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. Pretty simple, but it started off again with many, many sentences. To boil it down to that one thing has guided me for the last, well, actually longer than since, I had it in my head, but I didn't write it down until probably 5 years ago. And after I wrote that down, it gave me more focus and more purpose. I was able to finish my book, write my book, publish my book. I've been in 3 different startup businesses since then, all of which are focused on helping other people in one way or another, including the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. I want people to get the best out of everything. And any nugget I can do, anything I can unearth, anything I can find and share that can help change that dial, just move it 1 degree for one person. So a month later, a year later, 10 years later, a decade later, that's 10 years, a lifetime later, a generation later, what kind of impact can be made? And that's really kind of where I'm at. I always identified as the underdog. I always felt overlooked. Most times I was underappreciated, and I was definitely undervalued. And that included jobs that I had. I always worked hard, but I never felt like I was really valued. And I never felt appreciated. Part of that was in my own head. I'll grant you that. But sometimes we just have to get out of our own way and figure out what that is. So I paid attention. Here's the other thing, and it's that time of year again. It's graduation season. Our local community college just held their graduation ceremonies. I know colleges are going to be graduating here usually the first week in June. High schools are getting ready to graduate. Every single year that I can remember, I would get the newspaper, and I was subscribed to a local newspaper for the last 30 some years until the last few years. I couldn't stand it anymore. But every time graduation comes around, they profile, they highlight these students. And which students? Not the ordinary students. It's all the ones that are going places. They've got athletic scholarships, academic scholarships, music scholarships, science scholarships, track, field, football, volleyball, softball, you name it. They've got their tickets written, right? They've got scholarships to take them to the next level. And most of those still are going to drop out. That's what the statistics tell us anyway. But again, what about the ordinary kids? Who's paying attention to the ordinary kids and saying, man, I can't give you a scholarship for $500 to go to a university, but what can I give you? What can I give an ordinary kid? I can give them a compliment. I can help hook them up with a job, find people that might need extra help, work, something like that. I mean, how do you help ordinary people? Number one, let them know they're not ordinary. And that's, I know one of the people in our syndicate, I called him out at work. He was I heard him make a self-deprecating comment. And I said, I won't stand for that. I think more of you than that, and you should think more of yourself than that. Don't make jokes and stuff at your own expense. We're all too valuable for that. So again, I was determined to change that trajectory for my life and my kids' life. And I wanted to do it in a business, and every business thing that I've done. I like finding when I was working, I liked finding employees that were those diamonds in the rough. You can find them, you can just see it. You can create greatness out of good people. They all have it. And so tapping into that is one of the things. That's been my life passion. But I will tell you, once I had that mission statement defined, it gave me focus in everything that I did. Now, you can rob my mission statement if you want. I don't care. I don't have it copyrighted. It's not trademarked. If it suits you, you can use it. Okay. And I hope you do. I want you to find something that works for you. What is it that is going to define who you are, who you want to be, the direction you want to go, with the business person you want to be, the political person you want to be, the religious person you want to be, the family person you want to be. Figure out what that is, define it, boil it down, and figure out how you can move it to the next step. So that wraps up my time on that. And I'm going to open this up. If any of this relates, or if you can relate to any of this, I would like to at least know where you stand on that. I'm here to tell you that it makes a difference to write it down. There's power in the written word. It makes it real. It gives you something you can edit, you can chop, you can add to, but it should give you that direction. And that way, if you start getting off course, you can have a nudge. Does this line up with not only my values, but does it line up with the mission statement I wrote for myself? Do you need to revise? If you've already got a mission statement, do you need to revise that mission statement? I'd actually had some other things. You can even have a mission statement for your own family, like my wife and I did. It was just save the family. We knew what we didn't want to be. We knew what we came from, and we knew everything we didn't want to be. We broke the cycle. We made a major paradigm shift. Incredible things can happen when you just define what it is you want to do and the direction you want to go. It makes a huge, huge difference. So I'm going to open it up now. Any of you have, or if you've gone to seminars where maybe you've had to do this before. I never have. I've gone to marriage encounters, that sort of thing, where they have you do different things. There's value in all of it, but feel free to unmute. I'm going to ask you to unmute right now. I'm asking you all right now. Looks like it's going to let me do one at a time. Russell, guess what? Wow. I asked you to unmute.
Hey there.
Hey, did I get you?
Yeah, no, it was just a noisy environment. Wanted to step out of that first before you had to hear all the chaos. So
I don't mind chaos.
Yeah. No, I cannot recall exactly what the quote was you said earlier, but goals are arbitrary and moving, but visions are, eternal. Or what exactly was that quote again? Because
I said success comes when commitment meets belief.
Okay, and I like that one for sure. It was something you said before the recording started about goals and vision. And that was something that resonated with me, because yes, having goals, daily things, that's the short term, the things that need to be accomplished to keep whatever you're doing moving. But the long-term vision, are your goals in line with that? Just the small stepping stones, are they taking you to where you need to get? And that definitely resonates with me as far as having that overarching vision for what you're doing, but then planning out the goals that get there, because those do change. I mean, supply chain issues right now, that could be detrimental entirely to my company, but are the goals going to have to change? Are things going to have to adapt to, keep this vision alive, keep things going?
Right.
Yeah.
And I had put that, it was actually in the write-up for the talk tonight. And it says, goals are temporary and always moving, but a vision is permanent.
Yes, that.
Yeah. So again, like goals shift, but a vision doesn't. And what's the good word say? My people perish for lack of a vision.
Yes.
You know? Well, so you're right. There are all kinds of things that pop up. Supply chain issues are a big one right now, and you're in the manufacturing line. So, how does that, it's not going to change your vision, but you might have to adjust the goals. You might have to adjust the task to get you there. Might even have to adjust the timeline. Sometimes that can suck. When you have everything on a certain timeline and then you have to readjust. But again, it shouldn't change the vision.
Yeah, yeah. Why are you in it in the first place? And that being your vision. I was riding home with one of the business partners that I have, my brother, and he was, we were just talking to ourselves that yes, writing something down together would be very worthwhile, so that it does create more of a cohesive environment, because that has not been done as a company yet. So, no, good homework, and I'm gonna, have a partner for this one. So,
Good, good. Is that going to be your business, your brother?
yes, yes,
Okay,
yeah,
very good, very good. I'm anxious to hear this. This will make a difference, Russell.
yeah, yeah, and it is something that it's a hard mind shift for people to. I mean, we grow up seeing quotes like this. And, I believe your own vision statement there, Rod, is something I've heard before. And not to say it's not unique to you coming to it, but you can kind of see those things like, well, that's a nice cliche, but until you're in the midst of, I guess, what individuals like us do, entrepreneurial things, or have some sort of mission or vision in front of you, sayings and things like that, they don't really seem to mean much to people that are on the outside looking in.
Right.
Yeah. And I am surprised just having that mindset shift. Sorry, it's Monday still.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. How much that those sayings and those ideas ground you, what
Right.
how they can redirect where your thoughts are, where your direction is. So to be able to sit, I'd say it is a victory one, to be able to sit with my brother driving home, as business partners, and just to hear the things you're saying, and for it to resonate with both of us, instead of, him thinking you're speaking a foreign language. It's
Right.
someone else understanding and coming on board with these things. And that's a great feeling.
Yes. And it's the stories that make it, you said you've even heard my mission statement elsewhere. I've heard things like mine, and
Yeah.
it makes me mad, because it's like, hey, wait a minute, that's mine. I came up with that, and somebody's saying it similarly or something like that. But I boiled this down, and so I feel like even if I had heard it, I made it mine. I made
Yes.
it mine. And I'll give you one more quick story, and then we're going to move on. I know Jim is out walking with his wife, so he's probably not going to participate anyway, unless he feels really compelled. Jim, then you can.
I
You can
may.
even have your wife
I
talk
may.
to us.
I'm paying attention.
Okay, cool, cool. But one of the things I actually was asked to run for city council, and somebody had moved out of the ward, and so they had to appoint somebody else. And so they actually took letters of interest, is how they did it. So I didn't have to run a campaign, a political campaign. I submitted a letter of interest, and I had done some work on a community project, and I had never been involved in politics or anything like that, but I did get involved in a community project. And one of the people on the planning board, he was the president of the planning board, was also on city council. And he called me up out of the blue, and he said, there's a seat opened up, and I think you'd be really good on the city council. We'd really like to, have you. And I said, oh. Then I had to start asking, well, what does that entail? How many hours? What do you do? I didn't know anything about civil procedure and Robert's Rules of Order and all that kind of stuff. I lived my own life, and I didn't have to play those rules. And he said, yeah, you'll pick it up. It's no big deal, right? And so I said, okay. After like 3 phone calls, I finally threw my hat in the ring. And then I became one of 11 people who were up for this job. And I was like the virtual unknown. I was the who, unless you knew me from business or something, it was just like who. Everybody else, they were the people who were on, subcommittee this and board members for the hospital and attorneys and part of Rotary Daybreak and the Elks and the JCs. And I mean, they were the who's who of the community. And I was the guy who was just a family guy, building my own businesses, minding my own business, and being a great taxpayer. That was my claim to fame. But I wrote this letter of interest, and then everybody had to get up and give I guess your elevator pitch, right, to the rest of the city council. And everybody got up and they read their resumes, and I was right smack in the middle. And I stood up and I said, "You all got my letter, right?" And they all nodded their head. It's a formal meeting, so they can't respond, but they all nodded their heads. And I said, "Well, then I don't have anything else to say. I assume you read it. You've got a tough choice in front of you. You've got a bunch of well-qualified candidates. If you choose me, I'd be happy to serve." And I sat down, literally stood up, and within a minute sat down. And they deliberated for like 20 minutes and took a bunch of blind votes. And I was the one they selected for city council, the ordinary guy. And, I had that in me, and I didn't know it, but I called my wife as soon as the meeting was over, and I said, "You are not going to believe this." And she said, "You're the next city councilman, aren't you?" So sometimes we stand in our own way, but that's going from ordinary to accomplishing something extraordinary. I stood out somehow from all those other people who, by community standards, were in the know, the who's who. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that and being involved in those things, but when you can rise beyond that level and infiltrate that without going through all that, that's extraordinary coming to the surface. And that's what I want everyone to feel and experience, in business and in their personal life, because everyone has it. So that's story number 2. Story hour's done for me. All right, Palin, I'm going to put you on the spot next.
Go for it.
You're up.
It's just kind of interesting, your reference to high school kids and being the ordinary kids are kind of dismissed and forgotten or overlooked, and I was one of those too. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about some of these people that I do know that were expected to go to these high places and do these extraordinary things with their lives. And my 20-year class reunion, that really wasn't for a lot of them, they really didn't go anywhere. Actually, a lot of them went backwards from where I expected them to be. So it's a pretty good reference there. It kind of makes you think about it a little bit. It's definitely cut out to be extraordinary from ordinary. So
yeah. So how does that, well, you line up in a different way, obviously. I know your background a little bit, but how can you tap into this writing your own personal mission statement? How can you use that to leverage you to your next vision, to your next goal?
I think for me, I mean, it's probably just making that a roadmap or a part of my roadmap. I think with everybody, myself included, I mean, everybody has so many things coming at them from so many different directions, whether it be family, which is important, and obviously your work, your job. There's just so much to take in on a daily basis. So, and then one thing I've realized with, kind of starting to develop that mission statement and personal statement is kind of narrowing some of those things out and taking what's important and sifting through it and leaving what's not important by the wayside and not letting that fill your time.
Right.
So for me, that's probably the biggest thing for me is to put it down on paper. It really means something then, like you said, and really give it some direction, because it's there and you can see it, and be held accountable for it, because it's not just a thought in your mind anymore. it's that roadmap you're following and working on to get to where you want to be. So
Right. And again, go back to the original quote, which was success comes when commitment meets belief. And we all know, I think, what we believe, but how can you be committed to something that's just a thought? That's why writing it down matters. It becomes tangible when you write it down. It's no longer just a thought. It's no longer just an idea. It's not just a hypothetical. It's not just something out there that you can talk about in ethereal ways and hypothetical ways. If you write it down, it's real. And that's where you get your powers, because you can be committed to something that's written down. It's easy to say, oh, I'm committed to not cheating at poker, but if there are people holding you accountable, and there are rules, there's no cheating at poker, and it's so easy to let yourself off the hook because, again, we're so busy. We're busy with this, we're busy with that. And I'll tell you, I didn't think I had time for city council. This is just going back to that example. It's 1 hour a night, but it's like 7-8 hours of prep work at least for each meeting. And the packets would go out on Thursday. So that typically meant I'm blowing through part of my weekend, researching and getting prepped, So it's not that I had to find an extra hour. I had to find an extra day in there somehow. And you know what? It was worth it. You can find extra time if you're committed to it. And being committed to that, getting hired on as a city council person, it was a paid position and you have to take the oath of office and everything else. You take an oath and now it means something. I put my hand up and I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. I will, represent the Constitution of the United States of Montana and the U.S. Constitution. I've already taken that oath. I'll do it again. But now it's from a city council standpoint. And you know what? I had to be committed. And the commitment is where I got my power. It's where I got my energy. And I found the time. You can always find the time if you're committed to it. And again, that's why I really want you all to be committed to this. Write it down. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere, and writing it is going to make a difference. And again, Russell, I'm excited for you that your brother's going to be part of this because as you forge ahead with a family business and trying to go to that next level, you're going to want to be on the same page, and it will make a difference. But he can have a different personal mission than you. You guys have to be on the same page with the business mission statement, but on your personal mission statement, that can just be you, Russell. So, and your brother can do one of his own. And they might or might not be the same, but just know that that's going to be a dual assignment if you're both in and playing. All right, Jim, if you're in a position to talk, I would like to hear your input also.
I am. I'm back at my computer now.
Holy cow! That was a nice brisk walk.
It was a good 45.
Good deal.
Yeah. So I was having a lot of thoughts while walking. I think, you mentioned earlier, our previous conversation, that really kind of set things in motion. And I really started thinking about, the direction I'm hoping to find. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this seems so simple. Like, why didn't I think of this before? But a lot of different thoughts kind of running around my core values and some of the things that I expressed, like, having interest in networking and reaching out to people, things, a lot of that kind of resonated with your mission statement as well. And you thinking about that, I feel like I will land somewhere similar, but not quite the same. That's kind of where my head was going with that. I feel like it almost started making things a little more clear as I started thinking about, like, what does that really mean to put that in perspective and write it down? And I think it's really going to help me. I'm back at my desk now. I'm looking at my core values and I've got them written on my whiteboard in front of me. I think that's going to give me, a lot of writing that will then, take some work to get boiled down into something that's very kind of clear and concise.
it will make a difference. And I'm anxious to hear what you come up with after boiling it down, because values, we all have lots of core values, and boiling those down to their essence about what you want to accomplish is going to make a huge difference. And it will be that big launch step. And it's interesting because Palin mentioned that he kind of felt on the same track I did, as in the ordinary. And I don't know a lot of your backgrounds. Personal, I gave you some pretty vulnerable, I shared some vulnerable stuff with you guys tonight, but I know that one of the people who, he's not on our call tonight, he couldn't make it tonight, but he's kind of a little bit different. He comes from a professional athlete, collegiate athlete, high level, high achieving athlete point of view. And, part of what he's doing is helping those people go to the next level. So his mission statement, my mission statement, won't resonate with him. I can't imagine, other than in an esoteric way, it's certainly not going to be something that's going to mirror his personal mission statement. We all have our own, and that's the beauty of it. It's going to define us, and we get to define it, but it's almost like our shadow. If you think of it that way, we're the substance, but our mission statement's that shadow. It's following us. It's where we go. But more than that, it's the spirit part of us that's out in front. So it's our shadow behind us, but out in front of us, it's our vision. It represents what we can achieve. Our vision statement represents what we can achieve, and we're always walking in its shadow. Kind of mixing metaphors there, but it fits. It works. But Jim, I'm excited to see what you come up with after getting your values from your whiteboard and doing that. This should be an exciting level for all of us to go one step further. So I'm going to, unless there's anything else on personal mission statement, I'm going to open it up to anything else anybody's got. Highlights of the weekend, highlights since last week. Anything that's struck your fancy that would be beneficial for the rest of the group. Questions, concerns, thoughts, motivational quotes. I'll take anything.
Well, I will add again, I didn't really want to get into it too much when first talking there prior to you getting into the meeting, but part of the trip to Spokane, Kalispell there was doing a Spartan race for me. First time ever doing yeah. It was a lot of fun. First time ever doing any sort of event. I would say competitive, but I mean, there's 1,400 people, so I mean,
you're competing against yourself,
and that's really what it came down to. I've never been a runner. I didn't know what to expect, and I figured, okay, if I end up in the middle of the pack, I'm pretty happy with that. And it was a lot, what do I want to say? A lot easier than I imagined. I guess number wise, I got 261st place, but that was out of 1,400 people in my category. So
that's
I got
awesome.
to look. I guess, yeah. I mean, for me, I guess the lesson I'm taking away from it is I didn't really understand what my own capabilities were until I had something to compare it to. I'm trying to think the best way to phrase this, but whether a sounding board, I didn't have anything to compare to. Am I doing good? Am I not doing good? Right. And I got to looking at the total times and I realized, well, had I not had this or this hiccup, or had I done this instead, the difference between 261st and like 150th place, like 100 place difference was 7 minutes. Well, okay, looking back on that, yeah, I could have done this different, and 7 minutes, that's nothing. I mean, in the grand scheme of taking 2 hours to do the thing.
Right.
And I thought, doing a 10K, like, wow, that's going to be just beyond my capabilities. I better train for that. And to be completely honest, I didn't train as hard as I probably should have, preparing for an event. But I guess testing limits and really finding like, okay, maybe doing okay and succeeding, I guess, it's not that far out of reach. And that's kind of the lesson I walked away from it from. I passed a lot of people. I'm like, wow, they look really athletic. I'm going by them. This is crazy. And some of them had run a 25K the day before me, but so maybe that's why they were a little slower than me that day. But some of them maybe not. So on first appearance, it's like, wow. I mean, all these people look a lot better trained, and they're wearing the right gear and things. But I guess I don't know who I was talking to, whether it was yesterday or today, but a saying that I've heard is there are people less qualified out there doing more than you are.
Right.
And so for me, it was just one of those, hey, I guess I'm finding that I've got more to give than I give myself credit for. My limit is much more than I think it is. And, trying then to apply that to every other aspect of life. Yeah, that was a physical race that took 2 hours there and whatnot. But, what about the family life, the business, and everything else that, that maybe I don't feel like I'm succeeding at or doing as well as I would hope to. Like what little more is it going to take to move from 261st up to 150th or in the top 100 or something? What really is it going to take?
That is a really good takeaway. And number one, congratulations for doing the Spartan and finishing. That's absolutely awesome. The second thing that you mentioned was people less qualified doing more than you are. And having all the right gear and all that kind of stuff isn't it. It's what you do that matters, not what you wear and all that kind of stuff. And one thing that I learned, even when I was in high school, was it doesn't take a lot extra to go from a C to a B. And it doesn't take a lot extra to go from a B to an A. It doesn't. It doesn't take a lot to go from a D to a C. It just takes a little extra effort to get to that next level, a little extra effort to get to that next level. To be exceptional takes consistent effort over time, but it's those little steps. It's that little extra that you can do, whether it's time, whether it's doing something better than you did before, figuring out what, being analytical, look at how could have I shaved time off of that station? Should have I not done the burpees? Should have I, can I learn to climb a rope so I can, go up and over faster? It really gets into that, the nano, doing a nano version of ourselves, doing a nano analysis of our habits. And it doesn't take a lot. How many of you have read Atomic Habits? If you haven't, put it on your
bookshelf
list
to read. Yeah.
I have.
Put it on your list of things to read. That's something I knew before the guy ever wrote the book. Little changes adding up over time make huge differences. And what a great lesson that you took away from the weekend, and being able to apply that now to your business model even. All these little things add up. Being on this call tonight is one of those little things that helps add up. It does shift the paradigm. So we've got 5 minutes left. Anything else? Closing thoughts, closing remarks from anybody else? And thanks for sharing that, Russell. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, congrats on that, Russell. Are you going to do another one?
Probably next year I'll do the same thing again. Just traveling out of state for one's not an option, but probably do the short one with the wife. But I guess maybe I feel a little bit more capable, so I might do the 25K. We'll see.
Awesome. And Jim, this gets right back to you doing 75 hard. I mean, that we can do hard things, can't we?
You can. One of the things I was thinking about, I think it was Tim Ferriss. He was telling a story, and I don't remember if it was David Goggins or not. But he said he watched this guy do. I think it was the 100-mile race, and he watched him do it all by himself, and he had no help or anything. He ended up connecting with him afterwards. Said, "I want you to come train me." And one of the first things he did was have him go through a pull-up exercise where I think he squeezed out about 30 pull-ups. And he's like, "That's it, I'm done." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "You got a minute. You're going to get back up on the bar." He goes, "We're not stopping until you break 100." And he's like, "There's no way." And he explained that one of the first things they learned in Navy SEAL training was that when your body tells you you're done, you're really only about 30% of the way there. And
Yeah.
if you can overcome that barrier in your mind, and he said he ended up doing, he had little breaks, but very short breaks. He ended up breaking over 100 and realized, wow, I need to pay attention to this guy. So I think that's a lot of the stuff that comes into play is that we've been so conditioned to accept, you know, mediocrity that when you really got to push and you get into a race and 7 minutes, like could Russell have pushed a little harder for 7 minutes? Of course he could, but you got other people running around you. You see people tired. You see other people resting. I'm sure it just goes through your head that it's my first race kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Not that that's what it was for him, but I can envision that myself if I ever decide to do one, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll be out in Kalispell someday, uh, in my 50s, doing a Spartan race. But I think it's interesting, and I feel bad that I finally got to this point where I'm in groups like this, and I'm learning what I am now, going, kind of along with what you said, Rod. My parents came over from Greece. They had the immigrant mentality that you just work harder, you have to
Yeah.
work more hours, and it wasn't until I got married and my wife was from New York that I ended up moving to Chicago and really understanding like corporate world and the rat race and kind of that whole different mindset of what you need to do to be successful. And now it's in the later years that I can't absorb enough information right now
Yeah.
trying to pass that along. And it could be my kids, it could be my in-laws, it could be coworkers, but there's just that excitement right now to keep learning and really kind of pull all this together to help, whether it's my kids or it's someone I run into at the grocery store. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of desire there to share so much information that just makes life easier.
Absolutely. And it makes it better for everyone too. Again, like I said at the beginning, this is about people,
Right.
and helping people in general, whether it's business or not. We're still there to help people. And you brought up something with the immigrant mentality again that I just thought of, and a gentleman I follow on Instagram named Shane Parrish, and he says working hard is important, but working on the right things is more important. You think about that. Working hard is important, but working on the right things is more important. And sometimes we have to work on the right things. It's not about working hard so much, but working on the right things, and then the rest gets easy. So whether it's chin ups, you know, pull ups, or running a Spartan race. All right. Palin, any final words from you as we part for the night?
Well, that resonates with me pretty well about working on the right things. I'm at a point in my career where I know I'm not working on the right things anymore. So it's time for that transitionary change to be working on the right things, and definitely a lot of thinking and envisioning what that looks like for me in the next year.
Yeah. Well, you're in fertile ground.
Yeah, well, it's good to know. I'm in the right place. So
Yeah, we're all in the right spot. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off for the night. Thank you all for joining us. Feel free to shoot off later in the week to me, Jim, both of us, your personal mission statement. I'm anxious to see where these come and how they look when we're done. And the rest of you have a blessed prosperous week.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks,
You bet.
everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Night,
good night.
everybody.